everyone. Welcome to our March bonus of Lights, Camera, Accolade, where we will be focusing on some female film creators in honor of Women's History Month. So this month, we're taking a look at Lois Weber, who I found out very recently, aka this morning, when we pivoted from one director to another, that she was actually considered the first female director in that silent film era as prolific as D.W. Griffith. And she was, at that time, even the highest paid director, male or female. So very significant figure who, unfortunately, most of her work has been lost to time. That's common in the silent film era, which we've talked about before, but it is at least a little suspicious that, like, D.W. Griffith, his work survived mostly intact, and seems like maybe not as much care was taken with her stuff. But so keep in mind, this was like before women had the right to vote, and she initially was just joining a film production as a singer. And I guess with some of her ideas that she shared with the creators there, they're like, oh, well, why don't you kind of help out with whatever screenwriting and different film aspects? And within like 2 years, she had become a director and caught the eye of Carl Laemmle, the Universal producer, the creator of that production studio. And he was kind of notorious for not being very loose with his money. Like, he only supported projects if it was going to return money, right? Like smart investments. And he really, really, really loved Lois Weber and trusted her implicitly. I think he was quoted at one point as saying, like, if she could ask me for any amount of money for one of her projects, and I'm going to give it to her because I know it'll make it back. And that's like how much trust was in this woman who largely has been forgotten to time. So I'm really excited to get to watch some of her productions, even though we'll be going backwards in time to silent film era again. So it may feel for us, even at this early point in the podcast, like a little bit like a regression, but we'll have to put ourselves back in the shoes of like, no, these were super early. Like, I think The Blot, which is a full-length feature film we'll be watching, that was 1921. And then the shorter film of hers that we'll be watching, I think it's only 10 minutes long. That one is called Suspense, and that was in 1913. So I think that makes that the oldest movie we've watched. That was a year after the Titanic sank, you guys.
Yeah, before World War I, yeah. And the way you describe her, Sarah, she sounds like a really dynamic person, like the kind of person that walks into a room and just is magnetic. Because I think you said she also became the mayor of a town. So
yeah, when Universal City, so you know how like all of the different production studios had to become incorporated into like townships or cities and have their own representation because they were growing so much. She was elected mayor, and that I think was like 1916 or 1970. Either way, that also was before women could vote. So it's just incredible. Like, what is happening? Yeah.
There needs to be a biopic about this woman's life from the sounds of things. Get on.
I agree because I'm like, look, I can't learn enough about people unless you turn it into a movie. Right. Okay, like what am I going to do? Yeah. Read a book? That's not going to happen. But yeah, so that is just kind of prefacing Lois Weber and the time frame that we're going back at, which again we've talked a little bit about, and just excited to dive back into some silent film with royalty-free music scores again.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a Wings situation.
We don't want a repeat of the Tubi affair.
I skipped forward through a couple of them to be like, does this music seem like tonally appropriate? So no guarantees, but it seemed okay.
Okay, all right, excellent. We will hold you accountable if there's like something terrible and upbeat.
Damn it, Abby.
All right, perfect. Are we all ready to jump in, or is there anything else?
I'm ready to go.
Ready to go.
Good.
And let's go.
right, everybody. Well, welcome back. We have just done a rare double feature watching both Suspense and The Blot, two films from Lois Weber, who, as Sarah described, early female director. And so we're going to talk with you a little bit about them now. So I'll start off with the shorter of the two films, just giving a brief overview here because it was a very brief movie, only a little over 10 minutes, actually. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason for that, I'm assuming, because it came out in 1913. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the earliest movie that we watched so far, right? Yeah. The year after the Titanic and the year before the start of World War I. So crazy. I hope everyone had a good year in 1913. So all around that was quite a bit going on. But anyway, the movie Suspense is a pretty straightforward movie. Just like the title suggests, it's kind of a tense look at an incident wherein a young woman is at home taking care of the baby. Early in the day, the maid who stays with the family, she writes a resignation letter and marches off out of the home, unbeknownst to the woman upstairs with the baby at that point. She gets a phone call from her husband who's at work, and he's telling her, he's going to have to stay a little later than normal. So we're left with this woman alone at home with her baby. The maid has just left. The maid, in her note, made it clear she's leaving the key on the front step. And then very ominously, there is what the movie calls the tramp, but kind of a miscreant or vagabond is kind of casing the house. And he sees that the maid has left, and he sees maybe an opportunity to get into this family's home and get some food, get some valuables, commit violence, whatever he wants to do. The tension starts to build. The tramp finds a key at the front door. The woman sees him. She frantically calls her husband, get him to come home, protect her from this man. And just as she's doing that, the tramp gets through the door and cuts the phone line. So while she's stowed away in the upstairs, fearful for her safety, she's barricaded the door to the best of her abilities, and the tramp is just eating some food in their main room for now. Cut to the husband. He is so frantic to get home because he did hear before the phone line was cut about the danger. He leaves his job very rapidly and actually steals a car right outside from a gentleman working on starting up his car. So the gentleman whose car was stolen grabs the police. They start to chase after him. The husband is in such a frantic state, he actually hits someone on the way home, runs right into them with this old-timey car. But the guy is okay, but it's still harrowing, and he's getting chased by the police as he's rushing home to try to protect his wife. We see the tramp has now punched his way through the bedroom door. He's about to come in, have his way with the woman, when he hears that the husband has arrived outside the home. The police are hot on his trail. They're popping off gunshots at him because, as far as they know it, he's a car thief, a dangerous one at that. When the husband gets into the house, seizes on the tramp, gets into a little fisticuffs with him, and then the police come through the door and are able to see what's going on. They subdue this home intruder, this tramp character, and the husband makes it up to his wife, embraces her, explains to the police and the authorities and the gentleman whose car he stole just why he was in such a rush, and there's kind of order restored to the universe. But that's a very broad-stroked look at the movie. What did you guys think about this one?
I feel like there were definitely things that stood out in terms of technical achievement. Did not disappoint. So there were a couple of things that we've seen in more recent movies for the podcast, but one of which I have to call out is the usage of split screen while the wife and husband are on a phone call, and then a third screen with the tramp looking to get into the home. So very good at building that suspense and knowledge of like what each character is going through. But I definitely attributed our first viewing of that to 5-star final, where we had that really cool shot of the woman calling the newspaper and the various journalists giving her the like cold shoulder and stuff. So apparently that was done more than a decade prior by Lois Weber, so had to call that one out for sure.
Yeah, it looks terrific.
Steal valor.
Yeah, stolen valor. But yeah, it just looked really, really good. Definitely would not have thought that this came so, again, like more than a decade prior to all of the movies that we started watching. Even the car chase, I feel like that was really dynamic. We had a cool over-the-shoulder shot from the cops like chasing, and then swapping to the husband, the chasee's view, where he's looking at the side mirror to see how close they are to him. There's also a really cool shot as the like tramp comes up the stairs, but he's moving closer and closer menacingly towards the camera and like making eye contact basically with the camera until he's like right in your face. So there were just like a lot of really, really innovative things. Looks great, very creative. Everyone has 10 minutes. Probably if you're interested in film history, I think it'd be a good one to watch.
Yeah, no, I think it's really fun to see like all the locations that they were filming on. I know I mentioned this when we were watching it, and Jake, you said it's really interesting to see that because so much of that was lost after we moved to sound, and they needed things to be on sound stages or on set so that they could get reliable audio. It's cool to see like, oh, they're like actually driving on a car. They're not in a like prop car with a roller background like projected behind them. It's neat.
Yep.
Feels like more of the window into that time period that feels real and lived in and authentic in a way that some of our later early sound movies maybe feel a little bit more like what I was expecting when we set out on this podcast, that it would be kind of otherworldly or artificial. More in this silent era, they just have more freedom in terms of that location. So that was a great point you made, definitely.
I just think of like, compare this to Disraeli and how awkwardly staged that is. It's crazy.
I think because we were able to find, I hope it's the original score, but it definitely did build up suspense, even though it was like a silent film. And even listening to Jake's retelling, I had noticed too, like you started off kind of calm, and then as you continued to get into like, I guess the climax of the plot, like you started talking more and your voice got a little bit like elevated. So I think definitely a good job for a 10-minute little short film. There was a lot being done, and then it lived up to its name. You know, it was very suspenseful.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Halfway through, I'm like, well, name is spot on. But thank you. Now I feel self-conscious about my reading, but I did it on purpose, as you described.
It was smart.
There we go. It was
intentional.
intentional.
But one thing I do want to mention that like it struck me pretty quickly into it, and I'm not saying that Lois has the expectation or the responsibility to portray art in this way, but I did think it was interesting that it was like a short little damsel in distress story, kind of from a very classical vein of like rescue the princess or whatnot. Not to say that like she can't make movies like that, but that was interesting to me.
To me, the way that I kind of thought about that is at a time period where most women did have to stay home with the babies, with the children, with whatever else. Like you're not out working. There surely was like a lot of anxiety around being by yourself, you know?
Yeah.
I also think that Weber's taking the time to kind of humanize these characters in ways that, frankly, like the runtime and the script didn't necessarily call for. So things like, you know, the mother realizes that the maid has been dismissed, but the first thing that she does then is she doesn't know that there's some prowler wandering around the house at that point, but the first thing she does is get kind of anxious and locks all the doors and windows.
Right.
It would be very easy to have just kind of like skimmed over that. Like, I know part of the plot point is like the prowler has to find the key under the mat that the maid has left, but it would be so much easier to shortcut that and just cut out the maid concept entirely and just be like, here's a prowler, he's breaking into the house. So it's kind of an additional level of like actual character happening where it would be easy not to, and to kind of simplify it into just, oh no, damsel in distress, just setting up those stakes just for the fact of essentially the titillating nature of like the threat of sexual violence, right? But there's a little bit more going on there, which kind of grounds it.
Very true. That's a good point. But okay, well, this was a short and sweet one, so I think we pretty much hit on all the notes. So let's move on to the longer of the two movies. This one was called The Blot. It came out in 1921. It was also silent, but definitely you see the advances in the film quality and the technology between 1913 and 1921. So The Blot centers on two neighbors. There's a household, the Griggs family, and the patriarch of this family is a professor in the local college. And in the home, you have the professor, his wife, his daughter, Amelia, who also works at the local library, and then an older woman, presumably Amelia's grandmother on either side. So they are living in their home. They are really struggling to make ends meet. Interestingly, which I don't think we realized at the start of watching the movie, but we did a little research and later found out, pay for professors at this time was just not very high. So this family is really scrounging by on the father's meager income teaching at the local college and presumably contributions from Amelia's work at the library. They are right next door to an immigrant family, presumably from Central or Europe, given that the father's name is Hans. He is a shoemaker. He makes very expensive women's shoes, which Lois, our director, is at pains to mention several times, are very uncomfortable and impractical. But in any case, he's so good at making the shoes. He's created quite a successful life for him and his large family. Him and his wife have quite a few children, the eldest of which is a son named Peter, very principled young man, but very Americanized in comparison to his parents. They are doing so well that they just bought a car, and we're introduced to them next door to the Griggs, with the father Hans arriving home with the car, and all of their many children come out to see and play and sit in it. And so that kind of shows you two worlds. We have the new immigrant family with a lot of social mobility, very first generation, second generation, hardworking small business owner type mentality. And then you have the Griggs family. They are plugged into education, but they're really struggling at this time. So the professor, he teaches at the school. He has lots of students. Many of those students are very privileged. We're introduced to one in particular and his two buddies. The one I'm mentioning here, Philip West. He's a young man, very tall, strapping man, comes from good stock, good family, lots of money, but he's kind of a, not the best student in the world. Him and his two buddies like to goof off quite a bit in class to the professor's chagrin. But interestingly, Philip has quite the crush on the professor's daughter, Amelia, who works at the library. He goes so far as just hanging around the library, taking out books she recommends, but maybe not reading them all the way through, at least in the beginning. So he's doing everything he can to kind of display to Amelia and kind of win her over, romance her, and she's not quite into it, at least in the early stages and possibly throughout. So you've got that going on. You've also got the town minister, another young man who is friends with the professor, who the professor knows has some interest in his daughter, Amelia, and he comes over from time to time, although this very much stresses out the professor's wife, Amelia's mother, because they have such few funds that they really struggle to entertain people at any time. Even this humble minister, they can barely afford tea for him when he arrives. So he's sort of pursuing Amelia as well. It's clear he has interest in her, and she seems to respect and have interest in his vocation. But he's also really struggling economically, and this is a theme that Lois keeps hitting on throughout the movie, is the importance and the centrality of people's economic situation and the disparities that exist between these two families and other characters. But in any case, the story progresses. Amelia actually becomes quite ill, so ill that she's confined to home. Doctor comes to see her and recommends, nutritious meal, rest, and recovery. But Amelia's mother, the professor's wife, knows that that's very difficult for them to do because they have so few funds. So she gets into her head all these different ideas about how to help her daughter. Initially, she's very supportive of young Philip West's interest in her daughter because she knows he comes from good stock. So when he comes by while Amelia is sick, she's in a panic because she doesn't have enough supplies to make an adequate tea lunch for the two of them to enjoy together. So she goes out, spends what little money she has on a tea set, but by the time she comes home, Philip has already left, and the minister has arrived, and he's having a conversation with a sick Amelia, and they are. She's not as interested in facilitating that relationship. Should also be mentioned that by this point in the story, Philip and the minister have hit it off as friends, kind of independently of their mutual interest in Amelia. Philip coming from the wealthy background, the minister again being this humble servant of the people. They get together. They have kind of like a stepbrothers, we were joking, mentality and kind of a boyish friendship blossom. And although I think they're aware that they both have this interest in Amelia, they certainly notice each other both bringing her flowers. It seems to be a friendly, competitive type of situation, and nobody's bitter about it involved in the process. We also have Peter next door, that eldest son of the immigrant family, who is noticing Amelia. He doesn't quite fit in with the rest of his large family who like to party and play music in the house loudly to the father's chagrin. He likes to sit out, Peter, on the porch, and he sees Amelia also frequently sits out on the porch, and he begins to, it appears, kind of daydream about her. So the movie progresses, and Philip, the well-off character, as he's spending more time with both Amelia and her family and his new friend, the minister, he's starting to notice, as I mentioned a moment ago, some of these disparities that exist, economically speaking, between these people that are in his life, because he goes off to the country club regularly. He spends time with another girl who's pursuing him, and she makes it very clear, the cue card does, that she's more interested in him for his money than because she actually likes him. And his two buddies, and they have a great time at the country club, but for Philip, it's less and less fulfilling as he's finding out all these struggles that the other folks are going through. So he goes to great lengths. He leaves money for Amelia to find, but she doesn't find it, tragically. He ends up buying chicken and other protein products for the mother when he sees that she can't afford it at the store, and sends them anonymously to their home. That spirals into another miscommunication, because another thing I should mention is the two mothers, the next door neighbors, they have kind of an ongoing rivalry. It's really more one-sided in the sense that the immigrant mother resents this family next door because they appear to be, so well educated and older American stock, and yet their cats are always getting into their garbage, and it's clear that they don't have very much money, and she oftentimes sees the other mother kind of pining after their food, which she likes to leave on the windowsill to kind of show off their wealth. Well, the mother, in her desperation to help her sick daughter, the Griggs mother, she thinks about stealing a chicken from this other immigrant family just so that her daughter can have some protein and start to get better. So she actually grabs it off the shelf, but at the last minute has a change of heart and places it back. But she doesn't do it quick enough that both Peter and his mother, the immigrant family, that is, they recognize and see that she does that, and which enrages the immigrant mother. So Amelia saw all this transpire. She thinks that her mother stole that chicken in order to feed to her, and it fills her with such guilt that she returns to work, even though she's not 100% yet. And she's just trying to make enough money to pay back their neighbors for this chicken that she believes her mother stole. So she gets through the workday. She gets some humble pay. She goes over to the neighbor's house, and she says, "Please, I feel so embarrassed about my mother taking your chicken. Here's this money, my hard-earned money." This touches the heart of the immigrant mother neighbor, who sees, that they really are on hard times. Maybe they're not so stuck up after all. She explains to Amelia that the chicken wasn't stolen, in fact, and she refuses to take the money. Amelia, she doesn't quite believe it at first. She's so overwhelmed with emotion that she passes out. She's brought back to their home, and so the circumstances really are brought to light to her of everything that's happened. At that point, we have a bit of a time jump. By this point, everyone has grown more compassionate towards each other. The immigrant family has actually tasked young Peter with taking night classes with the professor next door to help him financially, but also to help Peter learn. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship, and I think a sign of their enhanced trust. We also have Philip and his two ne'er-do-well buddies. They've now decided to take school much more seriously, and so rather than goofing off in class, they're studying in their own free time with the professor at his house. And really, the movie, rather than climaxing so much, it leaves us with a question of the future, because we're kind of left here with Amelia, and she's got several of these young men kind of pining after her. I think Peter is kind of the dark horse in the race, in the sense that she may not realize he has this interest in her, the young neighbor, but certainly Philip and the minister, they're consistently spending time with her. Philip has learned quite a bit, become more compassionate. Philip now has gone to his father and explained to him, look at this plight of these teachers. They're underpaid, not just Mr. Griggs, but teachers in general at our university. In addition to that, my minister friend, he can barely get by with donations from people in the community for his lifestyle. We need to do more to help people. So he's grown quite a bit. And the minister, of course, he's just doing his best to help his congregates and help the community, which I think really appeals to Amelia. And we see her kind of longingly looking at him as he walks off at the end of the movie. So we're not quite sure, I think, at least I'm not, where things are going to land, but we've seen quite a journey throughout the movie in terms of where characters have started and where they end up, and how a lot of that is, built on what they see from each other and their new experiences. So I thought it was a really interesting movie, and I'm curious to hear all your thoughts.
Well, one thing that definitely struck me throughout that we continuously talked about is obviously the theming about the pay disparity with certain occupations, especially with teachers, which is still true today. So that aspect of it, because loved it for the movie, loved it for the narrative, but I couldn't help but thinking about like The Jungle or I'm a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, these movies or books that raised awareness for a certain issue that then more or less got solved. And then this one is still the problem today, still very relevant in terms of, teacher pay and pay for, plenty of other professions as well. But I really loved that the movie tackled those themes, and we got kind of different viewpoints and perspectives on what it was like from the professor's family, what it was like from the immigrant family, who at first you're led to believe like, oh, they're just really rubbing their wealth in the faces of others. But like Abby was saying with Suspense, there are little things that humanize characters, which make you reflect on like, well, no, this, the wife seems insecure about being uneducated, about not speaking perfect English, about being an immigrant in this place. So everyone's kind of like dealing with their own thing throughout it. So I thought it was really good. And I think there are probably a lot of things we could talk about in terms of, again, just being impressed with cinematography, with a lot of the acting, with a lot of the lighting, with the costuming. But I did at least want to say, even though I really enjoyed this, it did feel a little long at times. Because even though I liked where the narrative went, it just seemed like every scene was all building and building and building and building on the same theme. And so that can get like just a little bit cumbersome for 90 minutes, if that makes sense.
I think I agree with that.
I could see that. I mean, but where are you going to cut all those cute little kitty shots that Lois got in? Because we all love those. Lots of shots of cats.
Yeah,
lots of kittens,
really cute.
Lots of kittens batting around things, getting into trouble, getting into the garbage. Kittens and shoes, two motifs I think Lois maybe is known for.
I love all those like shot choices of like normal life or figuring out how to tell things about these characters by just the visuals. Like there's that great scene where I think it's that the Reverend has come by and is talking to Amelia's dad, Mr. Griggs, and he has his his feet crossed under the table and you can see the underside of his shoe and there's a hole in the sole. Right. And that's like the mom is seeing that, and just from that shot and her reaction, you can tell so much about like what is going through her head in terms of this guy is courting my daughter and he's also poor as hell. And right. How like not a great match that is in terms of getting them out of this financial situation that they're currently in, right? It's so like there's so much information packed into those shots that I think is terrific. But I agree with you, Sarah. I think it's a little like overlong. I think maybe I just don't care for melodrama or anything built on kind of misunderstandings that go on too long. Or,
a lot of that.
That kind of bothers me too. Like that's why I didn't like Bad Girl as much, even though like it was fun. It was just like, please, just one conversation would solve this.
Yeah, if you can't suspend your disbelief for that element of early filmmaking, you'll have trouble with a lot of movies from this era, but this one in particular.
Yeah, I think it makes me really interested to watch some of Weber's other stuff that might be available. I just think this particular movie is just not my particular cup of tea, but there's a lot of stuff going on in it that I think is cool, like the shot design and like the shooting on location. And there was a point that I commented on where the mother's top dress is like this really ultra thin black material and you can see her slip under it. And Sarah, you mentioned it might be because of the contrast because the slip is white, but it's really, you don't see it very often. It's not caught on camera very often in other movies, and kind of emphasizing the sheerness of that as kind of being able to like underscore the poverty, like similar things of their carpet being threadbare and like shoes having to be resoled and that kind of stuff. It's a really subtle choice, but it's very smart.
Right.
I like the way that Lois really, like, she gets into detail with those material components, like even her describing the meals on the cue cards that they were eating at the club and the labor that went into it, and the costs. She has like actual costed receipts at various points for the movie from either the products that are under discussion or being consumed, and it's just so clear that she has this central way of thinking about the material circumstances that to me was very refreshing, because a lot of times in this era of movies, things are very idealized or you gloss over that. And here it's very much a lived in world. I don't mean to compare it again to Within Our Gates from last time, but it feels true to life in that sense. Very melodramatic, like you say, Abby. But I like the way she is looking at it from the ground up, and you can understand why the characters are making some of the decisions they're making when you understand their material conditions more fully, and you see the holes in their shoes and the tears in their carpet and their thin material. So it was compelling in that way to me, certainly.
And particularly for the women in these families who don't maybe have as much social mobility without getting married or without kind of attaching themselves to things like Jake, you mentioned the decision for marriage. Like, it kind of sucks that if she marries Philip, it's like, oh, that solves all of her financial problems. But then it sucks to be in a world where you're having to make those decisions purely for your own like financial well-being. And I think that is definitely an important theme that gets explored. I think definitely in like Dorothy Arzner's movies. So maybe next year we'll see some of that as well. But it's just like men and women are in such different places when they view romantic relationships, potentially, because all of the men just get to fawn over her because it's like, oh, she's so pretty and she's so nice and she's, whatever else. But for her and for her family, right, it's just like, how can I either improve my station, or how can I feel good about a decision that does not improve my station? Like, how can I make this okay? So just very, very different perspectives that they have to navigate the world through. So it's interesting.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's the one of the meatiest discussions to have about this movie, but I was holding back because I wanted everybody to have time to hit on whatever they want to talk about. But I'm very curious to hear your guys' take on, just because it's fun. It's fun discussion. But of the three, if it's not the Golden Bachelor, it's the black and white Bachelor, the silent Bachelorette. If Amelia is the Bachelorette and she has these three gentlemen pining after her, and by that I mean Philip, the well-to-do boy who's her father's student and he comes from good stock, the minister who's kind of a bleeding heart but obviously really cares about the community and likes to draw his pictures, and she obviously has some connection with him, or young Peter, who is kind of a mysterious dark horse in the race, as I mentioned, her next door neighbor, who's studying under her father now out of the kindness of the family's heart, but likes to kind of gaze at her through the window and across the way. Which of these three boys will Amelia have to get with? Because I feel like that's what the movie is leading us to in order for her to live her life. I don't know. Or maybe that's the question.
I don't think
that's
what the movie's about.
Yeah, I don't think that is either.
No?
The fact that it doesn't answer... No, I think the fact that it doesn't answer that question at all is... suggests that that's not the point of the movie. Like, the point of the movie is essentially exploring the social dynamic between the rich and the poor and like the middle class, essentially. And it's essentially about, so much of the plot is teaching Phil West how to feel compassion for the poor. Like, that's 90% of the movie.
Yes,
and
agree.
The way that he gets there is by thinking that Amelia is attractive and he wants to date her, but like, that's his window into that world. And the more that he explores it and the more time he spends with like her family and also with oh gosh, I'm not
The minister.
remembering his name. The minister, like that is what is those human connections are what is, I guess, for lack of a better word, radicalizing him to the point that his family is like concerned.
So just basic empathy, yeah.
Yeah, learning basic empathy. But it's also not just him who is learning that empathy, right? It's also the neighbors who are learning to see, like, kind of get past their own insecurities so that they can support their neighbors and like building community, right? I think that's more the point of the movie than who Amelia is going to end up marrying at the end. And I think that's why we don't really get resolution on that, right? And
so
also
does Lois have those breadcrumbs to trick us then and make us think that that's what we should think it's about, when in reality she's feeding us this more important information like you're saying?
No, I think it is also just a reflection of people who would be in that situation, and you're going to have like different suitors or whatever else that might be interested to you, and those choices would be things that you have to take into consideration, but that's not the point of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think to an extent also it's kind of this, if you wanted to be a little pessimistic, it's this thing of just because this problem has been solved and this community has been built doesn't mean that Amelia Grigg isn't going to have to make a hard decision at some point.
Yeah.
But I will say, if I'm looking at these bachelors, right?
Thank you.
Jake's
Plant your
initial
flag.
question here. I feel like Philip West really is a good choice, because it's not like he was rich and disconnected the whole time. Like, he actually grew. He's baby brained, but he's like
shred of empathy.
Exactly. He's learning a shred of empathy, but like he's showing flexibility and open-mindedness. He just was never exposed to that before. So I'm like, so he comes from a good family and he seems to have a good heart, even though he's not like very connected to reality in a lot of ways. But that's something that I feel like he's shown a willingness to learn.
I gotta tell you, I agree.
Too.
Go ahead, Chrysanta.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Philip would have been the best option for all the reasons Sarah said. And I honestly think, well, no, I'm not going to. I was going to say that brooding guy probably would have been the worst, but I think that's, I don't know, maybe exaggerating.
Wait, they're both kind of brood. Do you mean the minister or the little boy next door?
The boy next door.
The vibes were mainly off with Peter.
Yeah, well, mainly because like, I don't know, like he, I guess, liked her, but he never took
they never had a
initiative.
Conversation. They've never like talked. You know?
They don't know each other. He doesn't know who she is.
At least the minister, you know, he shot his shot, you know?
Yeah.
The minister is a good second place, but Peter gave me strong, like, I know guys like that. I've been guys like that at different times. Like, he has a little bit of main character syndrome. He's a little too attached to his principles.
Like nice guy vibes, you know, or he has to convince people that he's a nice guy.
Yeah. But I agree with the both of you. I developed kind of a man crush on Philip pretty quick. I think he's very tall and strapping. He has strong facial features, but more importantly, he learned how to be a human being over the course of the movie, and he did genuinely like a lot. He used his privilege for good in the end. And
I like how you say more importantly, though, because I want listeners to know that while we were watching it and Jake was like, oh, I actually like Philip. I assumed because, you know, he was learning empathy, he was becoming a good person, he was trying his best. And then Jake is just like, no, all of that, I don't care about that. It's his strapping shoulders, he's tall. And I was like,
the way he was sitting in the chair, well, first of all, he brings like these giant flowers and plops them down on this dying girl and is like, hey, you want to be my girlfriend? And she's like getting crushed, like, thank you. And just the way he was sitting in the chair, just legs apart, just like he had such positive masculine energy. And I thought it was nice to see that, because like within 10 minutes the movie started, I was like, this guy's going to turn out to be a real piece of shit. Like you can already see the contours shifting. But no, Lois has a much more positive outlook on life and trust in humans. So rather than him falling to the dark side, he just he saves everybody. Let's be honest. He saved everybody, which is the kind of the criticism I have of the movie is like, it feels very of the 1920s in the sense that kind of taking a philanthropic solution to all of these material problems that she's identifying, which I feel like is, from my perspective, not a very good solution. But this is also the era of like Andrew Carnegie recently and other things where there's this idea that if you just worship these robber barons and these well-to-do families, it will trickle down to you through the goodness of their heart.
Right.
I don't necessarily feel like life has worked out that way, but that seems to be the movie's a little bit hinting in that direction.
Yeah,
but
rather than like systemic change, it's like rich people can fix it. Just if they have a little bit of empathy.
If they're all Philip.
Yeah.
They're all
I think
himbos.
that's why I'm interested to see some of her other stuff, because this feels like kind of a softball. I don't know. Maybe one rich guy really can save you, but looking at kind of the summaries of her other things like Shoes, which is about a woman coming to terms with prostitution, and The Hypocrite, which seems to be about clerical hypocrisy. I'm very interested to see those two movies versus like, I don't know. I feel like this is a nice version of reality, but I don't think it is necessarily reality.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
That's fair.
Which is why my vote for her marriage is Reverend Gates, because one rich white guy is not going to save your family.
Principled Abby. Pinoy's count on you to maintain.
Also, his art was better.
So. His art was better. Better.
Can we talk about that? I mean, and it's funny this film was made by a woman because she nails male relationships so fast, where it's like he sees the minister, he kind of sees the minister interested in the girl. This is Philip speaking. He gets the idea, from my perspective, he saw the minister walking home and he's like, it would be a good power move to give the minister a ride home. And so he picks him up, and then within like 5 minutes, they're like, oh, you're pretty cool. Like, he's like, come over. And they go over, and the minister's like, here's this old hag that lives with me, and I give her money. And he's like, that's my thing. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. Like, being good is cool. And then he brings him up to his room and he's like, look at my drawings, look at my anime. And like, they're like, just kind of like broing out, and it felt like Step Brothers. And I'm like, damn, she really nails it. Like, that is what it's like, because it's hard in the modern era, and I imagine back then to have intimate relationships with other males sometimes, like on a friendship basis. And so that's kind of what it's like. It's like very childlike, and I thought that was cute.
That was super cute. Their friendship was very wholesome.
They both liked the same girl. They didn't let it get in the way.
They didn't. Yeah. They still traded all of their good Pokemon cards with one another.
That's what it felt like. Yeah. And Philip was probably like, I have so many holographics. I don't need this many. I'm just gonna like trade him for his shitty ripped
it's
one.
okay. I'll take that Bulbasaur. It's fine. But I don't know if I have a whole lot else to say other than it felt very like similar quality to things that we're watching at this point that are produced in the early 30s, even though this was 1921. So I think as a director, I, like Carl Laemmle, would be like, I would trust the quality of basically any Lois Weber movie that I watch. So I am curious to watch other ones, but I don't know if I have too much more to say about this one.
I think it's crazy to see essentially what was lost when we got sound. In terms of, there were these incredibly sophisticated, shot, directed, like stylish silent movies being made, many of which we will never see because they've been lost to time. Yeah. And how much of that was sacrificed so that we could have a bunch of people stand around a microphone is really interesting.
Yeah. Especially, I think of early sound, like Trader Horn shooting on location, where it's just like the staticky sound of a waterfall and you just hear like, and you can't even like hear anything.
It's like me recording sometimes.
Yeah, it's like Jake's mic setup.
It just goes to show like how much technical advancements both like give you things, but also are kind of taking away some other things, and you kind of have to figure out how to supplement that, or until you start to until the technology improves, you can really be hamstrung by it.
Yeah.
We're getting better. Limiting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're in the mid 30s now, and some of these movies, it's like, I mean,
Right.
it's a little preview, but there's some good stuff coming up. But I think that's a really good recurring theme you mentioned, Abby, of that loss from silent to
Mm-hmm.
sound. Did you watch Wings yet, Abby? Because that
I
movie's
have
like
not watched Wings
it's
yet. I
you
need
should
to.
watch. It's like epic in scale and setting.
I'll do that this weekend since
It's
I
not
don't
on
have
Tubi.
Kingdom Come 2 yet.
Leaves you with a lot of free time.
Yeah, I don't have to spend 40 hours a day.
40
Well,
hours
how
a day?
Yep. Yeah, you
Wow.
heard me right. That is the correct amount. 40 hours a day playing this video game.
Discovered time travel, just a game.
Yeah.
Honestly. Well, so in terms of whether or not these two, I guess, samplings of Lois Weber are worth watching, what do you all think?
Are you asking me if women should continue to be allowed to direct? Because I would
that's
say
exactly
yes,
what I was
but
asking.
based on some of the things you two have said, I don't know. Just kidding.
I think definitely watch Suspense. I
Mhm.
don't know that I would watch The Blot. I might go check out some of her other stuff. Like, it's good. I think it is a very accessible silent movie, particularly since you can find it all sorts of places. Like, it's on YouTube and it's scored really well. Both of these we found and they had like dedicated scores to them. They weren't something that someone had just slapped over on them. So it's easy to find both of them and really great quality. So if you've got 2 hours or whatever, do it. But for me, I don't know that I'd recommend The Blot, but I'm going to definitely go watch some of her other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think for it, like being, well, not even, just like the fact that there's not a lot of information on her. Like, I don't know, maybe there's a documentary out there, but I'm curious, like, why was she buried? You know, like, why isn't she more well known if she seemed to have such a big impact in Hollywood? But I definitely would say watch Suspense. I like that one a lot.
I know that, like, at the time, even though there were more like female directors, writers, women involved in film, it still was difficult to break into the industry. And then that became even more so the case once the Hays Code came into play, because then you just had more of like, we're trying to establish what men's roles in society are versus women's roles. And then even more so for like directors like Dorothy Arzner. I think she retired early in the 40s because as like a queer woman, she was facing even just like more discrimination and more oversight with the themes that she had in her movies. So I think it's kind of like, I guess, unsurprising to me that then throughout those following like years and decades, less and less and less importance was put on like these early female pioneers.
It's so sad.
It is. Pioneer says, I guess. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. And anytime we branch out from like Best Picture to watch something that is really good or different or surprising or from like a group that doesn't get a lot of representation, it just makes me more and more sad that like, even though of course many Best Picture nominees and winners have been really good, it's just again underscoring that point of like, these are not necessarily the best movies, right, that had come out. So it's sad.
As we've mentioned before, M was the worst offender with that because that was a really great movie. And otherwise, that year sucked.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I would agree with you guys too in terms of like definitely watch Suspense, especially because it's 10 minutes and it's really well done. And then The Blot, I did enjoy it, but I think I'm on the same page of being a little bit more interested in her other works. If you kind of like more of the melodramatic sort of vibes for things, then this movie probably wouldn't feel overly long for you. So I would say that like it's worth checking out, I think.
I agree with you, Sarah, that it was too long, but I like just like kind of nice things, and it was a pretty nice movie. Made me feel good.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I did want to give just a heads up that our next full-length normal episode for our regular Best Picture nominee winner Oscar discussion will be delayed by 1 month. But other than that, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Check out Lois Weber's work, and we'll see you next month.